Today's episode is a jam-packed one for all you folks. We have 9 special guests from each one of the round-robin teams. Yes, that's from Vegas to Tampa. Logan and I give you our predictions for each series in Trending Now, and we also have a great interview with Jordan Henry, who's retired for the Brampton Beast. If you want, you can jump in on the app or on our website and click on the timestamps on our episode page, and you can fast forward to all the segments that you want. If you want to listen to Jordan's interview or our short previews with each of our Team City guests, go on the app, click on the timestamps, and it'll take you right to that part. As well, you can pause and you can listen to it tomorrow or later on in the day. Now, time to hit the music. Welcome to Jablam Sports Hockey, folks. I'm your host, Peter Borjaranov, and the mic is always on. You can find me on Twitter at Russia98. You can find the full show at Jablam Sports. If you have any questions or comments, please tweet us. Use the hashtag Jablam Sports. That's JABLAM Sports. Please subscribe to us if you haven't done so yet, and click on the 3 dots in your podcasting app. Share our show with 3 hockey fans you know. Thank you, everyone. Remember, check out our website, go to jablamsports.com, see all our podcasts, and even game notes for each episode. You'll get links to all the things we mentioned on the show, including guests. For our podcasts, click on podcasts, and then hockey on this show specifically right on our website. Time for some Trending Now. Back on the show, Logan, how's it going?
Good. How are you, Peter?
I'm pretty good. And where can everybody find you again on Twitter?
At Hoagie99.
Perfect. And where were you tonight working?
We did a little draft lottery show.
Oh, the draft lottery show, you might say. I know it was on Twitter. It seemed like it was trending. And hey, I picked the Rangers to win, and they won. I even had a poll on my Twitter account. Again, it's at Russian98. I put it, will Minnesota or New York win it? Because I really thought one of those teams are going to win, and I really thought it would be the Rangers. I just feel that they are a big club, and I would really want them to win. Again, if it wasn't the Leafs or Edmonton for yourself, I would want them to win because I really think they're moving in the right direction. They've got some good pieces with Panarin, Zibanejad, but they've got the good young youth. They have Trouba on the back end. They have Kapokako. They have Shesterkin between the pipes. Georgiev might be their backup. They've got so many more guys coming up. It just seems like a good fit to me, no?
It seems like they're getting a little stacked now. I don't know. But yeah, I can't argue against the Rangers or Minnesota or Nashville. I thought would be the other deserving ones as well. But Rangers, yeah, they're rebuilding. This is part of that.
Yeah, but again, going back to Minnesota and Nashville, I don't know. They're not flashy or exciting enough that if you put in a really good superstar, maybe they will be, but maybe they'll just turn him into a Ginla. You know, like I hated watching Ginla grow up and being, in my mind, a little stifled. Like he could have been way more impactful, especially offensively, if they played that style.
Yeah, he still got like 50 goals twice, or more than that.
Yeah.
So he could have did that a couple more seasons on.
For sure. I totally think he could have even been way more spectacular than he was, for sure. The thing that's trending online is everybody thinking that, it was fixed. It was fixed to the Rangers. What did you see there?
Their internet was always going to say that the fix was in there. Yeah. No one's going to be happy. They're always the party now is just waiting for it to happen, for it to be announced so you can say the fix was in.
Mm-hmm. It just seemed like, especially, I guess they showed him the gentleman that was putting the balls in. It was so weird too, with them checking the balls every single time. Are you for sure that it's the right ball there, Batman? yeah, it's the right logo. I'm like, what is going on? And then while they're doing that, he drops the Ranger ball in, and then he pulls it back up. And I guess people thought it was weighted.
I don't know how. I mean, it's tough holding on to a ping pong ball. Like if you just to hold it to camera, like
yeah.
So I don't doubt that he dropped it, but I don't think a little extra weight impacts a ping pong ball that much.
Yeah, it seems peculiar because I think you would want to be maybe lighter if it's getting blown up to the hole to be shown, and to be, I don't know. I didn't get it. All right. Big, huge episode. I want to get into everything quick, and what we talked a little bit about the lottery, but let's go into our quick thoughts about the next round. In the first round, we have the matchups, and we are going to quickly give our predictions. In the East, starting, Team 1 is now Philadelphia after the round robin. The Flyers look good in the round robin. Versus Team 8, which is technically Team 12, the Montreal Canadiens. Who do you think, and what do you think is going to happen in that series?
I got Philly in like 5, maybe 6, but probably 5. Philly, just from the little I've seen them, I haven't watched Philly a hell of a lot, but they just seem a bit big, a bit fast, a bit good.
Yeah.
All around.
They have everything, and maybe finally they have that goaltender that they've been looking for 4 years. There's no more of the Roman Chichmanics, you know. They've got Carter Hart. He's the golden boy. I had Philly going all the way, and I don't know why I should have taken them more. I was flustered when I was taking my picks in the fantasy thing, and I was upset with myself because I wanted to take more Flyers. But at least I got my Carter Hart, and I'm happy about that. I think because it is the Canadiens, and they played fairly well, and the way Carey Price stole games against the Penguins, I think Flyers in 6. That's what I've got.
There's just Montreal doesn't have the firepower to get past Philly. That's kind of why I'm saying 5. Doesn't matter if Price pitches 1 goal games throughout the entire series. If they're not scoring, they're not winning.
Yep. Next, Team 2, Tampa Bay Lightning versus the Blue Jackets. Team 7, which is technically Team 9. Man, this is interesting because what happened last year, Logan?
I believe they swept Tampa.
Yeah, that is what happened last year. And who was hurt in the first round last year?
Was that Stamkos?
Victor Hedman. And who is currently injured right now? Hedman. Yeah, a lot of signs are pointing almost in the same direction, and I am scared for Tampa. I have a feeling that they've learned and they've built their team a little bit better in the depth with adding Coleman and Goodrow, that now versatile and a little bit more physical and stingy, really good PK now. I think that's going to help them now. So I don't know. I have Tampa still winning this series, but I have it in 6. What do you have?
No, I got Blue Jackets in 6. I think Blue Jackets coming off a good series against Toronto, got their legs underneath them. Mm-hmm. Tampa's just now, again, like you said, banged up.
Yeah.
I don't think they played all right, I guess, in that round robin. It's tough to gauge these round robins because some people showed up and some people didn't.
Yeah.
But I think Columbus is just riding that high. They'll beat Tampa again.
Yeah, I was thinking Tampa way before, and you might be right. You totally might be right, and the way that they are playing, and both goalies played well against the Leafs. But from what I'm hearing, Ms. Lurk and the other goalie, it's Elvis. He could be out, and he could be out for the whole series, so that might hurt them in going into this series. So we'll see. Yeah. Capitals number 3 versus the Islanders 6. This is an interesting series as well. Very defensive and hard-working Islanders. And the ex-coach of the Washington Capitals against the Caps, who have a lot of firepower, but didn't show it in the round robin.
I noticed that. I got Ovi and Carlson in my playoff pool. I don't think they got much.
Yeah, well, Carlson is out right now, and he might be back, but he might not be back for the first game or 2.
Yeah. I still got Washington in 5. I don't like Islanders' chances too much, but I could be thinking old Islanders. This year's a bit better than previous years. So
Yeah, we'll see. I have Capitals in 7. I really think the Capitals will win, but I think it's going to be a hard-fought series. Boston, Team 4 versus the Carolina Hurricanes, which are technically now the 5th place. I have the Hurricanes in 6 games. I think they are high-flying, and I think their game might not match well against the Bruins, but the Bruins just did not look good in the round robin, and I don't know where their head is at right now with everything going on and being in the bubble, but this is kind of where the Hurricanes team kind of flourishes with the unknown and unpredictability of everything. And I don't know why, but I just have an inkling that the Hurricanes might win this series.
I picked Boston in 7 because I think the Hurricanes will definitely dominate a couple games. I think Boston eventually gets, because you're right, they were the worst team in probably all the round robins.
Yeah.
But I still think they'll get it together with the veteran presence and some veteran goalies to get them into the second round at the very least.
Yeah, we'll see. Vegas, Blackhawks, as we go to the West. Team 1 versus maybe Team 12, but they are Team 8 right now. But the Blackhawks, I don't know what it is about them, but it seems like their young players are ready for a playoff run, whereas we already know their core of guys like Kane, Taves, Keith, and Crawford, they know how to get through and win series.
I still don't quite buy the Blackhawks. They just had too bad of a regular season for me to buy in. And Vegas being Vegas, they don't have as many young guys, but they have all that experience everywhere. So I just can't. I'm picking Vegas in 6 just for Chicago rookies. Haven't had that experience, and Vegas will just not steamroll them, but hold them back.
Yeah, I have Vegas in 5, just because they have 4 lines that can roll with the punches and that can score and that can play the 200 feet of the ice. Yeah. So they just too dominant, and I was upset that I didn't get to pick enough Vegas because I actually have them going almost all the way. I really think the Vegas Golden Knights are going to go all the way, and they could very possibly win the cup. So they are that dangerous.
Yeah.
Team 2 versus Team 7, Colorado versus the Coyotes. I've got Colorado. They were my second team. I thought they were going to win the round robin, and the only reason they didn't win was because Vegas looked really good during that round robin ahead of everybody. But they took out the Stars easily. They have so many offensive weapons now, especially now that they've added the second line to that team. Thank you, Joe Sakic. And Ryan Graves, in my opinion, has come out of nowhere. We'll talk about more of this in these episodes with my guests and talking about Colorado as well. But wow, I have Colorado in 4-game sweep.
I picked them in 5. I think Arizona will get steal 1. Hall maybe puts on a brilliant performance. Keller as well, but yeah, it's Colorado in 5 or less.
Yeah, for sure. I was shocked that they took out Nashville, but they played really well that whole series.
Yeah.
So if Coyotes can steal a game or 2 and Colorado's not prepared, if they come out flat in a game and if they have a bad first period, I could see Coyotes stealing a game or 2, but I think Avalanche should destroy them in 4. Team 3, Dallas Stars versus Team 6, Calgary Flames. What do you have?
This is an upset for me. I'm calling Calgary in 6. Mm-hmm. Dallas didn't look good in the round robin. They're still a little bit, I don't know, maybe floundering is not the right word, but they just seem out of sorts, kind of like a Boston. And Calgary is riding the high again. They got that pest in Calgary, that Kachuk. Yeah, Kachuk. Who galvanates them, who brings them together, and then just pushes up the buttons on the other team. And they draws penalties. I think they're going to upset. What did I say? 6? I'm pretty sure. 6 games.
Yeah, I have Calgary in 6 as well. Dallas is not looking too good. Is Sagan 100%? Is Ben Bishop 100%? Are they going to get enough scoring from those top guys? And they struggled this season as well.
Yeah.
So we'll see. And Calgary, they are a bit better of a playoff type team with guys like Tkachuk and Lucic and Giordano as well.
Yeah.
The only thing that I'm scared for the Flames is their goaltending, which looked pretty good in that first round, or as you could say, qualifying round.
Yeah.
So if their goaltending holds up, they could beat the Stars and they can go further.
Yeah.
We'll see. All right. Team 4 is the Blues versus the Canucks. This is a peculiar series. The Blues did not look good at all in the round robin, but I think they were testing out a lot of things. So I have the Blues in 5 games.
I picked the Blues in 7. I think Vancouver is going to push them a little bit. Like you said, the Blues are a little bit out of sorts, so maybe it takes them a game or two to get in it. I think Vancouver's young guys will kind of step up. They haven't quite yet. They were involved in the series. Mm-hmm. Even Horvat, who I don't think he had a great regular season. He was noticeable in the qualifying round. So I'm pretty sure Canucks take it to the end and win it in the very end.
Who do you think is going to win?
Vancouver in 7.
Wow, Vancouver in 7. All right. Well, we'll see. Logan says Vancouver in 7. I have Blues in 5. We're all over the place here. Yeah. So we'll see what happens with our predictions. And again, we post everything on our game notes, so our predictions will be there. Enjoy the rest of the episode, folks, with all our guests for the round robin teams, and including our special guest Jordan Henry talking about his retirement from professional hockey. Now on the show is the recently retired defenseman of the ECHL's Brampton Beast, Jordan Henry. He's a big, strong defenseman and who's a hard worker and plays a solid physical game. Jordan, thank you for taking the time to talk.
No problem. I'm happy to do it.
All right. Congrats on the retirement and the great long career you've had. The list goes on from the places that you've played. KHL with Dynamo Minsk. That must have been an exciting. Finland, Sweden, of course, when you were younger, in the WHL with the Red Deer Rebels, all over the AHL, ECHL, and of course, the last 5 years with the Brampton Beast. Exciting career.
Yeah, I had a few stops, along the way. It started out, I was pretty stable in Rochester there for 3 years, and then kind of started moving around a little bit, I guess. Once that first contract expires, and you kind of look for a new place to fit. And then I took the Russian experiment there for 1 year, and then came back, and then went back over and did a little other tour in Europe there. So it was great. Honestly, when I was younger, it was nice to get out and do that stuff. When I went to Russia, I'd never been to Europe before or anything like that. And, as a 23, 24-year-old kid, you go over there, it's kind of an eye opener, especially, going over there by yourself and everything like that. But it was great. It was a great experience. And I'm glad that my career allowed me to do some traveling like that. And, it's easier to do it when you're younger and, you don't have a wife, you don't have kids, stuff like that. So it's easier to do it than uproot the whole family.
What would you say was like a bit of maybe of a learning process, or maybe something you would let another athlete know in terms of being used to the North American style, being a hockey player from here, and then having to play in Europe and in the KHL?
Well, obviously the ice surface being bigger is a big factor. It just, especially as a defenseman, I feel like your positioning changes a lot, just because you can't afford to get too far away from the net and overcommit to, kind of near the boards area, unless you're certain that you're going to get the puck, or you're certain you're going to be able to make a play. Otherwise, it just, like, before you know it, you seem like you're swimming in the middle of nowhere out there. You're so much further from your net, and then that kind of opens up a lot more space for scoring chances and whatnot. So it's a little bit more of a compact game defensively, I think. But it took a little bit for sure, but I think, after a few games, you get used to it, and then kind of where you should, where you shouldn't go, and then you kind of adapt your style that way.
Coming from the small town Milo, Alberta, just outside of Calgary, what made you choose to want to play hockey?
I mean, small town Alberta, pretty much everyone plays hockey, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like the only real things we had in the town of Milo were the school, the bank, the grocery store, and the hockey rink. So it's like, I guess we had a bar too, but I wasn't going in there. So no, it's just like all the kids around. I mean, the rink, we weren't big enough. The town was only 100 people, so it wasn't like the rink was always open. You just walk in and the ice is there, and you go skate. So after school and stuff like that, a lot of the kids are going over and they're skating, they're playing shinny, stuff like that. So just everybody does it, no matter, if you're good or not good, or everyone's out there together. So it's just, it's fun, and it's just kind of part of life out there.
When you were young, I'm guessing you chose to play defense. Is it for extra touches, having the puck more, or just to stop others from scoring?
Honestly, I think, in my time growing up is like, the defensemen weren't as good as skaters and stuff as they are now, and they're big guys. So, I guess I was kind of big and slow, so they just threw me back there. Also, my team that I played on when I was young, minor hockey, we only had 3 defensemen. So it was like, you got a ton of ice time, 3-4D for a game. So it's like, if you want to play a lot and you want to develop, that's where I was going to play. So, and my dad was a defenseman growing up too. So that kind of helped a little bit there. He showed me the ropes and stuff that way. And like I said, just being big and slow, I guess they throw you back there.
What were your decisions into retiring at this time of your career?
My wife's pregnant again, so we got my first little boy, Jensen. He's 16 months right now, and then my wife's due right at the end of October again. So, we're gonna have 2 kids under 2, and my wife owns a company in Mississauga too, and with the whole COVID situation, she had to lay off the majority of her staff and everything. So a lot more of the work and the burden's kind of fallen on her as far as that goes. So, it's just, my parents don't live in the Toronto area either. And my wife lost her mom a few years ago. So it's just basically my father-in-law as far as the family unit outside of us. So, you don't want to put that kind of pressure on him as far as babysitting and stuff like that. He's almost 70 years old. To be chasing after 2 hyper little boys, I don't think is really in his skill set. So, it's just, we just didn't quite have the family support around here to, have the kids babysit and, stuff like that. It was part of it. I think we had always discussed, we knew that was going to be the case when she got pregnant again with this second baby, that I was going to retire. We actually weren't planning it for another couple of years. It was a bit of a surprise. So, so that's part of it. But, since that happened and I decided and everything, the whole COVID situation has put a lot of uncertainty into hockey in general, let alone the East Coast season moving forward. So, I wouldn't know if I'd want to take those health risks as far as, putting my family, my young sons, and, my elderly father-in-law, I guess, in harm's way by traveling to US all the time and back and forth to different cities, unless it was a lot more secure than it is now.
What were some career highlights for you that really stood out?
Well, obviously, anytime you come out of junior and you're fortunate enough to sign an NHL contract, that was a big highlight for me. Florida took a chance on me and they gave me a pretty good opportunity to kind of insert myself into the AHL lineup there. And, I was close to getting called up a couple times probably. And then, I decided to jump on the Russia thing just to see what it would be like. And, obviously that's a highlight too. You go over there and you spend time and, my first goal over there was on Dominic Hasek. So it's like, you don't, those are things I wouldn't necessarily get to experience anywhere, but over there. So, that stuff like that. And then, when you come back and sign again with the Flames and, you get an opportunity to play those exhibition games in the Saddledome, the rink where I watched my first NHL game, and you see your friends and family there to watch you. I mean, just stuff like that is obviously a big thrill.
You've had great drive in playing in all the different leagues. What has made you keep going?
I think it's just, how I was raised. Obviously, my parents were farmers when I was growing up, and my grandparents, and they're hardworking people, and they instilled good values in me as far as work ethic and stuff like that, and not to quit on stuff when it doesn't work out right away. So and I love hockey too. I mean, it's I've loved hockey since I was a kid, and that's all I've ever really known as far as sports wise. Once I started summer hockey, I gave up the other sports pretty quickly just to spend more time with hockey. And I love the game, and I always will. So I think you want to play forever, to be honest, but it never seems to work out like that. But that's okay. So it was a great run, and I'm happy about it.
How was it playing for the Brampton Beast the last 5 seasons?
I really enjoyed it. Like I said, my wife and I, we live in Burlington here, so it made the transition a lot easier for that fact. I mean, coming to here, we had decided together, it's time to play closer to home. And once we got married and everything like that, I wanted to spend more time with her and all that, and we put down some roots here in Burlington, and it couldn't have worked out better with Brampton being right down the road. And I got to play 5 seasons here, and I loved every minute of it for sure.
What's next on the plate for Jordan Henry?
Well, right now, just being a dad and a husband, I guess you're gone so much during the season and everything like that. Truthfully, the COVID situation, I've enjoyed it for the most part. Just I got to spend so much more time with my son and my wife and everything like that. So, him being so young and developing so quickly, it's like, you go away for a week and you miss a bunch of big moments. So that part of it's been great. And then, with the second little guy coming along soon, it's going to be chaotic for a few months. And I think, with the uncertainty of the season, everything like that, I'm just going to take this season and enjoy some family time. And then after that, long-term plan, I definitely like to get into coaching. I feel like I've had a lot of experience at a lot of different levels and everything like that. And, I've watched the game progress over the last 13 years as a pro to the point it is now and the style it is now. And, I feel like I can still relate to the younger players. I mean, I'm old playing wise, but as far as a coach, I would be young. So, it's something I'm definitely interested to get into. So it's just a matter of finding the right opportunity.
Mm-hmm. His Twitter handle is jhank86. Jordan, thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
We'll start with the East and go to the official top team in the land of brotherly love and talk to Anthony SanFilippo. He's the Flyers writer for CrossingBroad.com and the co-host at Snow the Goalie podcast. You can find him on Twitter at SanAndPhilly. Anthony, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Peter. It's always a pleasure to do these things. I'm happy that you reached out.
Cool. So the Flyers swept the round-robin games and held the opposition to only 1 goal in each game. They look fantastic right now.
Yeah, they really do. And I think that the big difference between or for the Flyers as opposed to everyone else has been the fact that they really took those round-robin games seriously. Mm-hmm. I'm not certain that every team did. I think that, you heard some comments, especially out of Boston and St. Louis, where they were saying things along the lines of they were more like exhibition games where they, just try and get through them, and then the real playoffs will start this week. But the Flyers looked at it as, we have something to prove. We came in as the 4. We can climb up to the 1 and get the lowest seed remaining. Mm-hmm. And they took those 3 games very seriously, and they really went out and they stunned their 3 opponents. I never thought that Boston, Washington, or Tampa were in those games. I thought Tampa played probably the best of those 3 teams against the Flyers, but Boston looked awful. Washington was only able to get 17 shots on goal. And like I said, Tampa played better. I mean, they actually were kind of sort of in it, but the Flyers took advantage of some opportunities. And then, of course, they were without Hedman for 2 periods there, Tampa. So I think that kind of helped the Flyers as well. So, but no, to their credit, the Flyers are a team that wanted to show who they are, show that they are one of the top teams in the NHL. And, there's probably 6 or 7 teams that can win this thing, and the Flyers are certainly one of them.
For sure. And even before the round robin, they're my pick to actually win the East. Why are the Flyers so much better than even just a year ago?
It's all about coaching. It's all about the coaching, Peter, because Alain Vigneault came in and he brought with him 2 assistants who are former NHL head coaches in Michel Therrien and Mike Yeo. And these guys put together a structure and a system that requires these players to be accountable to themselves, to the teammates, to the organization. And I think that is the difference between what they were a year ago and what they are now. You have players like Jake Voracek, for example, who's always been a top-end skill player, right? Always been a great offensive player. Never really known for the way he plays in his own zone, the way he plays defensively as a forward. Alain Vigneault sat him down. I remember having a conversation with the coach, and he said, we told Jake, we had a conversation, and he said he wanted to do things a certain way, and we said, okay, fine. You could do those things. We'll let you do that. But here's a non-negotiable. You have to get back and play defense. You have to do these things in your own zone. If you don't, you're moving down the lineup to the 3rd or 4th line. And there were even a couple games during the season where he did that to Voracek. He did that to James Van Riemsdyk. He made examples of veteran players so that the younger guys in the organization realize, well, if he's willing to do it to Voracek and he's willing to do it to JVR, then he's willing to do it to anybody. And I think that kind of cohesion allowed this team to buy into what he was preaching. And of course they were getting results, right? So winning makes you believe. So they were getting off, good results. And I think that kind of led into it, so when you have that kind of coaching, I think that makes a huge difference. The second thing I would throw in there, which I think is a little underrated and not a lot of people talk about, is general manager Chuck Fletcher. He has done a really nice job of filling in the gaps. A lot of the moves that he's made were unheralded. Even the Kevin Hayes move, which was probably the biggest move he made of this season, was criticized. I was one of the people. I raised my hand. I admit it. I criticized the move because I thought they were paying the guy too much money. Mm-hmm. Turns out, for the first year, he's been great. Right? He's been worth every penny so far. But if you look at it, he added 2 veteran defensemen, and Matt Niskanen and Justin Braun. Nobody bats an eyelash at those moves, right? He brings in Tyler Pitlick from Dallas as a free agent, like a depth forward. Nobody mentions that. And then you look at the two trades he made right before the trade deadline: Derek Grant from Anaheim, Nate Thompson from Montreal. Nobody talks about these guys. Yet they're all playing here in the playoffs. They're all part of the run. So you're talking about 5-6 players who were not on this team last year, who are not stars by any stretch of the imagination. But you're talking about a third of your lineup that was brought in by this general manager and is providing the kind of depth that you need if you plan on making a deep run in the playoffs.
For sure. You explained a lot of the good moves that they've done, and with coaching and by the GM, so that's great. Scott Laughton, he looks fantastic in the round robin games. 2 goals, 3 assists. I guess he's an offensive dynamo now?
Well, that's a good way of putting it, Peter, because, it's interesting when you think of Scott Laughton, a lot of people kind of forget that he was a first-round pick. Mm-hmm. And when you draft a guy in the first round in the NHL, you're not drafting him to be a 4th-line player. You're not drafting him to be your 3rd-line center, right? I mean, the goal is that he's the top 6 forward. If he's a forward, he's a top 6 forward. If he's a defenseman, he's a top pair defenseman, right? Yeah. That's kind of what the goal is when you draft somebody in the first round. And Scott Laughton took a little bit more time to develop. Now, I think that there was an opportunity for him once they fired Dave Hackstall. Scott Gordon last year doesn't get enough credit, but when he came in as the interim coach, he kind of gave Laughton some freedom. And Laughton has said this. He said, I really felt that Scott Gordon really allowed me to start playing the way that I felt like I needed to play. And, gave him some opportunities to be a little bit more of an offensive player and not just a penalty killer, 4th line guy, whatever, role player. And so he started to get a little bit of that towards the end of last season. Then when Vigneault comes in and becomes head coach, and he looks at it and says, my system is very go, push the envelope a little bit. And Laughton has all year has had a great year. I mean, he had 2 injuries that kind of derailed him a little bit, but I mean, there was no doubt about it. The team voted him, his own teammates voted him the most improved player on the team. So he won that award. And now he's playing on a second line, left wing, with Kevin Hayes and Travis Konechny. And he's just putting up the points. I mean, that's really what it's become. And it's just good stuff from Scott Laughton. And when you have a guy like that who can develop and work his way through, it only allows those bottom 6 to be even better, right? Scott Laughton making the second line good makes the third line better, makes the fourth line better. So he's an very important piece, kind of overlooked a little bit because of the other players on this team, but there's no doubt that he has been as big, if not one of the biggest parts of the Flyers' success since January 8th when they got started going on this big run.
Let's go between the pipes. Is Carter Hart that goaltender that the Flyers have been missing for all these years? That's such an important piece.
Yeah, I think he is. It's hard to put such great expectations on a kid who's just about to turn 22 years old, right? I mean, he's still very, very young. But the one thing I love about Carter Hart is he's completely unflappable. There's no moment that is too big for him at his age. If you go back and you think about it, there was a time when he was in World Juniors and he was playing for Canada. And, I'll tell you, World Juniors to Canada is almost as big as the Stanley Cup or as big as an Olympic gold medal. I mean, they're probably the holy trinity, right? You win the Stanley Cup, you win Olympic gold, and you win the World Junior Championship. I mean, that's how important it is up there. So there's been a lot of pressure on him, even to when he was 17, 18 years old as a goalie. So I don't think he shies away from these big moments at all. And so what you're seeing here also, and the other thing that I think a lot of people forget, and it's not just with Carter Hart, but I think you can say this for guys like Phil Myers and Travis Sanheim and even Ivan Provorov, young players, Joel Farabee, if he gets to be in the lineup a little bit, is that we're playing in August, okay? So in essence, we are where the normal training camp kind of starts up, right? Maybe not real training. They get together in August. The real training camp starts in September, but you're normally entering a second season. All right. And a lot of times over the summer, after you get that break, young players kind of develop over the summer and, from their workouts and stuff, and they become better. They become faster and stronger, whatever the case might be, right? As they get a year older. And it's weird because we're still thinking about the season that was going on 5 months ago.
Yeah.
And this is completely abnormal, but these players have developed in this pause. They've developed into a new season in a lot of ways, but it's still the same season. So Carter Hart is really a season older playing right now, okay? And just like any of the other young players, they're all a season older, and I think that's what makes the Flyers even that much more dangerous coming out of the pause, maybe more so than any other team.
For sure. You wrote on your post an article on crossingboard.com. You can check it out. I'm going to also put it on my game notes on my episode page. You have the Flyers beating Montreal in 5 games. You think Price will be able to steal just the one game and that's it? It's all over?
Well, so I don't even think Carey Price stole a game against Pittsburgh.
Okay.
In a lot of ways, I thought Pittsburgh was terrible. I mean, Montreal did. I mean, I'm not going to take credit away from the Canadians. I mean, they played well. They have 3 defensemen, and that's it. After Weber, Petrie, and Sherratt, there's nothing behind them. I mean, it's cross your fingers and hope, and then you got to hope that Carey Price can bail them out when their defense isn't great. So he didn't have to really do that against the Penguins. He's going to have to do it against the Flyers. I think Carey Price, if the Canadians are going to win any games in this series or even keep themselves in this series, Carey Price is going to have to be a difference maker. And as good a goalie as he is, when you don't have good defense in front of you, I don't care how good a goalie you are. Like, you're not going to, steal 4 games from a top team. You might get one, maybe you get 1.5 kind of thing, and then the team, plays well in front of you, and they get a second. So I think that's why a lot of people, when you look at a lot of predictions, you're seeing Flyers in 6, right? I think that a lot of people are picking it in 6 games. And I think that that's the thought process. Let's think Carey Price steals 1, the Canadiens play well in 1, so that's your 6. That's the 2, and then the Flyers win the other 4. I'm not convinced that the Canadiens will play well enough in a game. I think Carey Price maybe gets 1. That's not to say I think the Flyers are going to blow him out. Yeah. I still think these games are going to be low scoring. One thing that's kind of interesting, I don't know if you've noticed this, Peter, but including tonight's epic 5 overtime game between Columbus and Toronto, 75% of the games that have taken place in Toronto in the Eastern Conference have come in under the over-under line is 5.5 or higher. It's come in under. And the reason that they're coming in under, and I'm not trying to make this a gambling podcast by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm pointing out the reason that they're coming in under, and these games are low scoring in Toronto as opposed to what they're doing out in Edmonton, where the over has hit more often, is because it's really warm in Toronto this time of year. Okay, August is really warm in Toronto, and you've got 2 or 3 games a day in a hot arena going on. Those ice conditions are not great. Yeah. So it's that much harder. So teams are playing a defensive game. You got good goalies, and the ice conditions are not very good. Yeah. And so I think you're getting a lot of low scoring games. So I think the Flyers and Canadiens are going to play lower scoring games, and they're going to be closer games. It's just that I think talent will win out. And I look at it and I say Flyers are going to win games like 3-1, right? Or 2-0. Like I think that's the kind of games you're going to see more so than 5-2 or 6-2, something like that, right? So I think these games are going to be close, but I do think the Flyers are going to win 4 out of 5.
Yeah, the ice is chippy out there. I was actually thinking about that as well. With the Leafs, very high offensive, skilled speed team, playing in those later games is probably not good ice for them, whereas defensive teams like Columbus and stuff, it'll maybe suit them a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, what not a lot of people are thinking about for the Flyers with this is that because that Columbus-Tampa game went 5 overtimes, they had to bump the Boston-Carolina game. So that game's now being played Tuesday morning. Yeah. Okay, which means that the Flyers-Canadiens are going to be the 3rd game in the same day on the same sheet of ice. Yeah. So it's going to be game 1 for Flyers-Canadiens. Those ice conditions are going to be even worse. Okay, because there's going to have been 2 full games played prior to them on that same ice. And so I think you're going to see a little bit of choppy play in that first game. And it's going to really be about the teams locking down their area, playing good defense through the neutral zone. It's going to be tough sledding out there. I don't think there's going to be a ton of great offensive chances. I think it's going to be a low-scoring first game, but I still think the Flyers are going to win it.
All right. You can find them on Twitter at SanAnPhilly. Anthony, thank you for coming on the show.
Hey, Pete, anytime.
Let's go to the East Coast in Tampa. Now we have on the show is Erik Erlendsson. He covers the Lightning. You can get his website at lightninginsider.com. He's the host of Lightning Radio Monday to Fridays, 12 to 1 p.m. Where can you get that show?
Well, actually, I'm on hiatus with that right now because of the whole pandemic situation. So I'll probably be starting my own podcast here soon. So if people want to follow my Twitter feed, there'll be some information on that, I think, forthcoming shortly.
Oh, that'll be good too. And you can also reach him on Facebook, facebook.com/Lightning Insider. And like you mentioned, your Twitter feed is Erik_Erlendsson. All right. Erik, welcome to the show.
It's my pleasure, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you for coming on. All right. Before we get into the series and the team and everything that's happening in the next few days, they've stumbled into a couple of injuries here. What's the early update on Victor Hedman? In my opinion, he's the most vital piece to this entire team.
Yeah, once you get past Andrei Vasilevsky, I mean, that's the same for any team, though, right? You take the number 1 goalie away, especially a Vezina finalist, that's always your important piece. But in terms of skaters, there's no doubt. He's the one guy that they could ill afford to lose for a lengthy period of time. They have more depth than they had last year because he was banged up going into the playoffs last year. He played in games 1 and 2. Looking back on it, he probably shouldn't have because he sat out games 3 and 4. Yeah, unfortunate situation. If anybody watched the game against Philadelphia on Saturday, he tried to pivot back and his skate got caught, and you just kind of could see the ankle bend a little bit. So It's a lot of weight to put on that ankle as he turned. You could tell he was in discomfort. He smashed his stick against the railings as he went back to the locker room, which is not necessarily a good sign. And, welcome to the NHL in 2020 in a bubble, though. We have no idea what's going on. We can't watch practices. We can't see practices. Didn't even get practice updates. If he misses time, we don't know how long it's going to be. It's extremely vague on the information you get. It wasn't encouraging to watch it, but I've seen situations before that look like they're bad, and next time the team plays, he's back on the ice. So we'll have to see, but you're right. He's a player that they can't really afford to have out of the lineup for a long period of time if they want to get to where they want to go, and that's to at least reach Edmonton when the conference finals take place sometime in September.
Yeah. Let's get an update that you can't really mention much about either with Steven Stamkos. We haven't heard much about him at all, really.
Yeah, that's probably a concerning one as well, because when they came back and announced that the format to come back and play with camps open on July 13th, we were told on July the 11th that he suffered some sort of a injury during phase 2 voluntary workouts, but he was expected to be a full participant at some time during camp. Well, we're a month from that date, and he never took part in a full practice while the team was in Tampa before departing for Toronto. Didn't take place in any of the scrimmages. He practiced for a couple of days in Toronto, and then he didn't, and then he was a partial participant, and then he didn't practice. That's the he did speak about it when they were in Toronto the first day, and he did mention that it's indirectly related to the core muscle surgery he had back the first week of March. And that's just kind of the ebbs and flows. And that's John Cooper's term in sort of describing what's going on with him. But again, welcome to injury news in 2020. It's like getting stuff out of, the vaults as it is during playoff time. It's even harder now to get any sort of a real concrete update. And John Cooper was tired of answering the question, so he shut it down even before they played Philadelphia in that final round robin game. He said, I'll take no more questions on it. When he's ready to play, I'll let you know.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's get to that round robin games that they had there. They looked really solid, 2-1 overall. Big shootout win versus the Caps. Kucherov there. They controlled the game against the Bruins, doing well on both special teams, and then lost that last game to a Flyers team who's playing really well right now, 4-1. Tyler Johnson has looked really good so far, in my opinion.
Well, if you're looking for somebody to step up and kind of fill the void of a Steven Stamkos, assuming that he's not there, he's the guy. He's a playoff performer. He's done it in the past. I mean, what he did in 2015 was Conn Smythe worthy, what he was able to accomplish. And, they were staring a 3-1 deficit against Detroit in the first round, and he rescued him. And Andre Palat rescued this team in that fourth game with a couple of late goals, and then they won it in overtime. And so he probably would have been the Conn Smythe winner had Tampa Bay won that series against Chicago. Had he not broken his wrist, he probably would have had more of an impact in that series against the Blackhawks. But he's a guy that needs to step up. They need to fill the offense. He's kind of at a point in his career where he's primarily been a number 1 or number 2 center. Braden Point comes along, pushes him down the lineup a little bit. Anthony Cirelli's come along, pushes him down the lineup a little bit. So he's split a lot of time this year between basically third-line center and second-line winger. Well, with Steven Stamkos out, he's been taking on that second-line wing role, and he's a clutch guy. He's a guy who, if you look at over his career, he's a winner, right? Like, he's won a gold medal with Team USA at the World Juniors in 2010. He won a Memorial Cup with Spokane. He's won a Calder Cup and was an MVP in the American Hockey League. So he's just one of those guys that needs to do it. And as far as their team play in the round robin, I think that they were encouraged by how they played, especially if you look at how they want to build themselves and how they tried to build themselves this year compared to last year. With the addition of Pat Maroon, they signed last offseason, and the trade deadline acquisitions of Barclay Goodrow and Blake Coleman. They want to be a team that's harder to play against, and there's a lot of ways you can define that, whether it's physicality, whether it's relentlessness, which is sort of a Blake Coleman and a Goodrow attributes that they have. But they have a different attitude this year, and I think that you saw that specifically in the game against Washington, because the first period, the Lightning really controlled the game. They had Washington sort of back on their heels. They weren't allowing the Capitals to get through the middle of the ice. They were picking off pucks left and right and turning it back the other way. Washington decided that they wanted to be the physical team that they want to be. And they turned that up, and the Lightning didn't back down from it. And I know the Capitals came back and scored a couple of goals late in the second to tie it, but the Lightning didn't kind of back down, and that's kind of what we're looking for with this team, especially now that they're in a series with the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Mm-hmm. See, when I look at like the Selke Trophy, I don't know why they always look at guys with high numbers and then who are good defensively. You mentioned them, Cirelli, Goodrow. Does Tampa have the best penalty killing in the league?
Oh, boy. I'll say, Cirelli and Alex Killorn, that's been the pair on the top penalty kill unit for Tampa Bay this year. Really, really good together. They actually create a lot of chances shorthanded as well, but they've been such a solid part of it. And their PK, especially towards the final 2/3 of the season, was really, really strong. And with Coleman and Goodrow, they've come in and they've been a pair as well. And you could see it right off the bat for two players that had never played with each other. That's some great chemistry on the penalty kill. So they have those two guys. You want to throw in Yanni Gordon and Cedric Paquette. That's basically their third pairing of PK forwards. It is very deep. It is very successful. It helps to have the guy in net, but when you have the forwards that can, what they do and the way that they can actually pick off plays and go the other way, they can create some offense out of their shorthanded situations as well.
Yep. Kucherov, how ready is he? Or I haven't seen him too much of a big impact in the round robin games, and we know how he played last year in the playoffs. Is he ready to go?
He is. There's no doubt in my mind that he is. The shot that he had against Braden Holtby for the first goal in that round robin game. There's not a whole lot of guys in this league that could fire the puck the way that he can, and from that angle and to pick that top far post. He's ready. The thing you want to make sure with Nikita Kucherov is he doesn't get frustrated. He got frustrated last year. The whole team got frustrated. They blew that 3-0 lead in the first period against Columbus in game 1, and they're down 4-3. Then they looked listless in game 2, and he took a bad hit, got himself suspended. That's what you need to avoid with Nikita Kucherov. Don't let him be frustrated in the wrong way. There are right ways to be frustrated, and sometimes he goes the other way with it. But I think, there's one of those misconceptions about a Kucherov. He doesn't care enough, and he just wants to score goals. And it's not him. He is a competitive guy. He wants to win. I've had many conversations with him. It's kind of like a lot of players we see in, scrum situations in the locker room. There's 10 cameras around, and they're not going to be the same person as when you talk to him one-on-one. And I've had plenty of one-on-one conversations with Nikita Kucherov in my career, and he wants to win. He wants it badly. He works at it. I think that there's no question in my mind that he will be ready for this postseason.
All right. Well, it's going to be a rematch between them and the Blue Jackets, just like last year. I don't know what to expect now. They look like they're ready. They look like they're good. We kind of saw that last year as well. They look like a dominant team, and it's the same team, and with Tortorella and that stubborn defense, and now apparently amazing stellar goaltending as well. What's going to happen in this series?
Boy, I don't know. Here's the thing. Here's my take on it, though. It's the same, but it's different, right? Because it's the same two teams. There's a lot of the same core players, but there's a lot of players who have moved on as well. Just look at Columbus and no Bobrovsky and no Panarin and no Duchesne, no Dzingel. A lot of the guys that they had as part of that team last year, not around. For the Lightning, they brought in a Maroon. They brought in a Kevin Shattenkirk, and the trade acquisitions of Coleman and Goodrow. Like we mentioned, Zach Bogosian's on this team now. Curtis McElhaney is a backup. There's a lot of players who weren't involved even in that series last year. And the Lightning are built differently. Last year they tried to be, I don't want to say they were an analytics type team, but they were kind of predicated on their size or their speed and skill, as opposed to maybe not so much size. They're a little bit smaller as a forward group. Well, they addressed that. Maroon certainly brings plenty of that. Goodrow plays bigger than he is at 6'1". Blake Coleman plays bigger than he is at 5'11". So the team is built differently. So I think there's a different mental side to Tampa Bay's game this year compared to last year, and that's going to be the test, especially going against Columbus, because they can frustrate the you-know-what out of you because of how they can really clog the neutral zone, and that's really where Columbus won that series last year. They would slow Tampa Bay down on the middle of the ice, and they would either force dump-ins that Tampa Bay was not able to get their forecheck established and recover the puck, or they would try and pull up at the circle and try and wait for a second wave, where Columbus was ready for that, and they would pick off those passes. They weren't allowing stuff through the seam in the middle areas of the ice. I think Tampa Bay will have a different game plan, a different approach to this game. What's going to happen? I learned last year, predictions, I can't do them. I'm not very good at it. I knew Columbus was going to be a tough opponent, but no way did I see what happened to Tampa Bay in that series. But I expect Tampa Bay just to be more mentally prepared for this team this year, maybe compared to where they were last year.
You can go to Eric's website, lightninginsider.com. Erik, thank you for coming on the show.
Peter, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Let's go to the Capital. Now we have on the show Jason Rogers. He's an NHL reporter with the Washington City Paper and Jasper's Rink, and a TV host on NBC Sports Washington. You can find him on Twitter at HeyJJRogers. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Peter, thank you so much for having me, man. It's a real pleasure to be here. And hockey's back. We've got real sports to talk about. What's better than that, man?
For sure. I read your article you sent to me in your piece last week for the Washington City Paper. And it's funny, I think you said that GM Brian McClellan said there's a chance for a little randomness to creep in. The championship is up for grabs. It could be wildly entertaining. A little randomness? I think there's a lot of randomness already going on. Teams 12 from both conferences are already in the next round. You know what? When they implemented this 2014 thing, I was like, yeah, they're going for the money with Chicago and Montreal. But now I'm like, damn those people. They're in the next round. Come on.
I'll tell you what it reminds me of, Peter. It reminds me of last year's wild card playoff squad when the Hurricanes eliminated the Capitals and the Avalanche ran through the West, and everyone fans of established teams were saying, whoa, hold on, this doesn't seem right. Whereas every other neutral fan on the face of the planet was like, hell yes, give me more of this randomness. I love that quote from McClellan because he is such just a old school hockey guy, but even when he said it, there was a little smile on his face, and he's like, this could be wildly entertaining.
Yeah, it sure is. We'll see how far the Canadians and the Hawks can go Team 12s, technically. I was looking already at the bracket. I'm like, Team 8? They're not Team 8. Well, I guess technically they are now because they're top 1 to 8, but they're Team 12. They're Team 12. All right, let's get to the Capitals here. Close round robin opening, shootout win against the Lightning. They lose to the hot Flyers 3-1, and they beat the Bruins 3-1 in the final game. Does their offense need to wake up a little bit at least?
Boy, that is the $10 million question here, Peter. I'll tell you what really does need to wake up, because this is an enormously talented top-end team. This is a team in a lot of ways. You and I were just talking about this before we started recording, how much the Maple Leafs of right now, RIP, remind me of the Capitals from a few years ago. This is a team with enormous scoring talent, enormous wheels, enormous hands, starting with Alex Ovechkin, just probably the greatest pure goal scorer of all time, all the way down to young guys, your Jacob Veranas, your Evgeny Kuznetsovs, those types. So the talent is there. What needs to wake up is the power play, especially as we saw in the round robin. Referees are handing out power plays like they're candy these days, and so you've got to take advantage of it. The Capitals' power play really, really struggles for a couple reasons, and we'll get into this with the Islanders, why I think this might be a problem for the Capitals. Yeah. They struggle to enter the zone. They are absolutely married to this slingshot zone entry where somebody carries the puck across the first blue line, and then they lay a little drop pass for someone behind them, lose all the momentum, get tangled up in the neutral zone, and then they've got to dump and chase to get into the zone. So that's a problem. The other problem with the Capitals is that I know, and you know, and your grandmother knows, and the mailman knows that Alex Ovechkin is looking for that one-timer from the left circle. And if you can stop that, I mean, the Capitals' power play flows downhill towards Ovechkin like water flows downhill to the ocean. And teams have realized, well, if we can take away that pass across the point to Ovechkin, they're not really working on trying to get the puck to Oshie in the slot. They're not really working on trying to get the puck to Kuznetsov below the goal line. And so this is a very, very talented but very one-dimensional power play. And that, I think, is part of the reason you've seen so little scoring from the Capitals so far.
Well, you mentioned the one-dimensional power play because of Ovechkin. So that leads me into that question is John Carlson. He is a big part of that power play and another weapon that they have there, especially being considered maybe the MVP after the first 2-3 months of this season. Where is he right now? What's the update?
Yeah, so as of right now, John Carlson did skate today at Capitals practice. Now, it was an optional practice. It was very light. I don't know if he was full contact or not, but he did skate for the first time. As of right now, he's being called a game time decision for game 1 against the Islanders. But you are exactly right, Pete. I mean, Carlson plays 2 big functions for this Capitals power play, and they are hurting without him. The first one, he's the primary feed man for Ovechkin. Yes, you've got the greatest howitzer, the greatest artillery cannon of all time sitting over there. But if you don't know how to load the gun, you can't shoot it. And Carlson is perfect at slipping those cross passes right where Ovi needs them. They are struggling right now. The pass is a little off. Ovi can't get a perfect release. The second thing is John Carlson has a just enormous slap shot. He's one of the only other guys that is a realistic threat to score from the point on the power play. And because the Capitals struggle with, hey, we need to make the defense respect every possible thing we can do, you need Carlson out there. You need to force the defense to come out to him and take that shot away. With Carlson still on the bench, teams are playing back. They're able to say, okay, let's maybe double team Ovechkin. And so not only do you miss Carlson on defense, not only do you miss him on the penalty kill at even strength, and all of the things that he's done that make him, along with Roman Josi, the favorite to win the Norris Trophy this year, but you miss him on the power play. You miss him in, it's sort of like you never know how much you love something until it's gone. Mm-hmm. The Capitals and their fans, I think, are realizing, holy cow, John Carlson was just essential to everything this team does, and they are going to be hoping big time to have him back from that lower body injury.
Yeah, he's probably going to win that Norris as well. Landslide victory there for sure. So we mentioned, you mentioned Ovechkin a lot, and I mentioned Carlson too. What about the rest of the roster? We need to see more offense from the top players like Kuznetsov and Backstrom, and even Oshie just had the 1 goal.
Yeah, I mean, it's with a team as top heavy as the Capitals. They've gotten better in recent years, but they still are a little top heavy. You need your $10 million athletes to perform like $10 million athletes. But the other thing the Capitals really need, and this is a tale as old as time in the NHL, you need more secondary scoring. And the Capitals, I mean, if you look down the line at some of the names on the Capitals' bottom 6, I think it would shock people that haven't been paying attention. Carl Hagelin, Ilya Kovalchuk. I mean, there are some names in there that a few years ago, those were some of the most dangerous players on planet Earth. And now they are bottom 6, 12, 15-minute a game guys for the Capitals. They need to get going, especially for Kovalchuk with the Canadiens in the playoffs. I'm sure he is really hoping to outlast the team that traded him to DC at the deadline. But I think that's the thing. Like the power play, the Capitals offense works best. You have to respect everybody that's out there. And right now, that secondary scoring just isn't coming, especially on that third line, which is skilled enough to be a top 6 line, I think, for a lot of franchises in this league. I think when it's healthy, it's Carl Hagelin, Lars Eller, and Ilya Kovalchuk. That's a dang good third line. And they need to get going right now, especially against a team like the Islanders, a team that is so systems oriented, a team that is so much, we're going to get up 1-0. We're going to put our boot on your neck and we're going to force you to execute to beat us. We're not going to make mistakes. The Capitals need to get that execution going. They need to start playing like the skilled team that they are.
Mm-hmm. Which Braden Holtby are we going to get for this run? It looks like, I guess, Samsonov is out.
Yes.
Right? So they're really going to need to rely heavily on Braden.
That's exactly right. And that's what's so weird, right, about being a goalie in the NHL is you can have Braden Holtby. You can have a Vezina Trophy winner between the pipes. But if he gets hurt, all of a sudden, with all due respect to all backup goalies on earth, you've got some guy between the pipes that is now the entire hopes of your championship. Mm-hmm. And so for the Capitals, Ilya Samsonov was a first-round draft pick. He was the highest the Capitals have ever taken a goalie since Ole Kolzig in 1989. But Samsonov got hurt before the playoffs in Russia in an ATV accident. He hurt his back. So he did not travel to the bubble with the team. And so Vitek Vanacek, a guy that I've had a lot of opportunity to hang out with, just wonderful human being, great kid, not a lot of NHL experience. He's been called up twice ever in his career. Otherwise, he's been a lifer in Hershey. He is now the guy that if Braden Holtby gets hurt, that's who the Capitals are riding. So to your point, so Braden Holtby right now has been the Capitals' best player in these playoffs. It is not a conversation. I think I've got the stats in front of me right here. Holtby is currently sitting on a 1.98 goals against average and a 9.25 save percentage. He's the reason they are not the 4 seed right now. So if he is able to stand on his head, he can make up for a lot of deficiencies in this team. He will need to be the workhorse. He will need to be the show horse. He will need to be the thoroughbred that this team will ride if they're going to win. If he falters, if he looks a little soft, if he's letting in weird goals like that third period 2-0 goal last night between Columbus and Toronto, it's going to be a very, very quick postseason for Capitals.
Yeah. So they're playing against the Islanders. How's that series going to go? The Islanders looked very good against Florida too. So
yeah, there's a lot of intrigue here. If you are a fan of soap operas and of drama, this is the series for you. This is the team that won the Stanley Cup and then fired the coach that got them there. That coach is coming back into town with his new squad, and he wants revenge. He wants justification, And so his protege, Todd Reirden, head coach of the Capitals, who was Barry Trotz's bench assistant for years and years and years, going all the way back to Nashville when Barry Trotz was in Nashville. This is a cool matchup. Can the protege defeat the sensei? Can the sensei get revenge against the team that scorned him? But not only that, you've just got such a clash of styles. Not that the Islanders are not wicked skilled, because they are. If you look up and down from Beauvillier to Bailey to Boychuk to Barzal. I mean, everyone on the team right now is real good. They're very skilled, but their strength is their systems. They are, like any Barry Trotz coach team, massively disciplined. They stay at home. If you make a mistake, they will punch you in the mouth. And the Capitals right now are very mistake prone. There's a lot of defenseman Dmitry Orlov coming up to pinch to keep the puck in the zone and missing that pinch and giving up an odd man rush the other direction. You can't do that against the Barry Trotz coached Islanders. So this is a series that I think the Capitals can win. I think ultimately the Capitals are a better team top to bottom than the Islanders are. But when that final round robin game against Boston was going on, and it was, will the Capitals face Carolina or the Islanders? I think there were a lot of people that said, well, Carolina may be the more skilled team, but they're also a better matchup for the Capitals because it's just going to sort of be fire wagon hockey. You may give up 4 goals, but you're going to score 5. The Islanders games are going to be 1-0, 2-1 kind of games. And I don't know if that style of hockey really suits the Capitals very well. And so this is going to be a team. Nicholas Backstrom said today at his press conference, we need to basically get our heads out of you-know-where and get ready for the playoffs. This is the real deal Holyfield now. And it's going to require this team ratcheting up the intensity, ratcheting up the focus to play the type of good execution game that you have to play to beat the New York Islanders.
Yep. You can find him on Twitter at HeyJRogers. Jason, thank you for coming on the show.
Peter, thank you so much. And as always, go Caps.
Let's go to Massachusetts and talk some Bruins hockey now. And we'll talk to Mark Allred. He's the host of the Black and Gold podcast and the founder of the website blackandgoldhockey.com. You can find him on Twitter, blackandgold277. Mark, welcome to the show.
Hey, Peter, how you doing? Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks, man. All right, so the round robin was kind of interesting. Bruins, obviously the top team during the season, maybe by far, and was the only team not to gain a point during those games. And I will say, it didn't look like they were disinterested. Heck, we even saw Torrey Krug in a fight.
Yeah, it was a little disheartening to see after so many months of having no hockey, and to have these guys that seemed to be committed and working out at home while they're doing their quarantining and so on. I thought that when the NHL did get back into some kind of normalcy and into the bubble, that these guys would be all in. But that wasn't the case, Peter. It was one of those things that the Bruins just played, and it seemed like it was just a regular practice for them. And it's the same thing in their press conference interviews too. When you hear players like Zdeno Chara and Brad Marchand leaning back, just saying, basically laughing it off, thinking it's a preseason game. So I hope Bruce Cassidy cracked the whip in the last couple of days, and they're ready to come in today, because there's a Carolina team waiting. That's going to be it's powerful and deep, and it's not 2019 anymore. This is a totally different team, totally different animal.
Yeah, we'll get to the Hurricanes in a bit. So we didn't see much from those top players, like you already mentioned, Pastrnak and Marchand. I know in the early phases, it didn't seem also like David was maybe gun-ho to play. He didn't even join the bubble until a little bit later. But I think it was Cassidy who said, he looks great, but probably needs a haircut. So it's a lot of maybe too much playful stuff going on.
Yeah, I think he took the 20-year-old route and did some things on his own that some people might think was selfish for the team and so on. But in my personal opinion, I think that he should have at least gotten to the States a little earlier, if travel permitted, obviously, coming from the Czech Republic. But it's that, I mean, it is what it is when it comes like that. But I think that the whole quarantine thing with him and Kasha should have been as is a quarantine, and not out in the north end of Boston and practicing in rinks and taking pictures with people. I don't think that that's the appropriate thing to do while you're quarantining. And I know for a fact that that Zdeno Chara, Bergeron, Marchand, and all those the core leaders of this team gave him a stern talking to. So hopefully that is all taken care of. He's in the bubble, so we're all good.
All right. Well, he was the best scorer in the league, of course, tied with Ovi, and one goal more than my boy Matthews. I still don't see enough people talking him in general, though, across the league.
He's an up-and-coming superstar. I think that he's gotten more notoriety this year than any other season, just because of the fact is that he was pretty much dominating along with Ovi in the goal-scoring race. So, 12 games to go in the 2019-20 season. He could have gotten a lot more, but so could have Ovi too. But I'm proud about what the kid did, the step he took, the more patience that this coach and coaching staff have with Pastrnak moving forward. I just think that this is going to be a year that he can build on, but also a year that everybody else just wants to get rid of.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting bubble playoffs, I guess you could say. But according to the best scorer in the league, the best scorer is Tom Wilson, eh?
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Yeah, he got Pasternak's phone obviously got hacked. I wonder who that was all about. But yeah. I mean, Wilson scored one hell of a goal against the Bruins and Tuukka Rask, obviously. But I don't know about going as far as the best scorer in the league. But it was pretty funny regardless.
Yeah, let's hope the seriousness gets a little bit more focused for them. I know driving by Hotel X, it's a beautiful hotel. Every day I've been driving by, going to and from home and work, seeing it. So they might be all enjoying themselves maybe a little bit too much there.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is it really called Hotel X, or is it just not being named?
No, it is Hotel X. That is the name of it. And it's a pretty new hotel. It's really, really modern, really designed well. It's just outside of downtown Toronto, though. It's in the CNE grounds where we have our exhibition and our soccer stadium for TFC there, our MLS team. So it's maybe a 10, 15 minutes away from the main core of Toronto. But they have that whole area of the C&E grounds closed off for all the players for the bubble. So we have the Royal York Hotel, which is the old classy hotel, and that's where the qualifying round teams are staying at. And the Hotel X teams are basically Pittsburgh that didn't qualify, and the rest of the round robin teams that were staying in there. But there's a shuttle and stuff that goes back and forth so that the players from the from the qualifying teams can go to the X grounds and stay within that whole bubble, so they can use the TFC soccer field and everything else surrounding it. And of course the Hotel X, because the Hotel X is like beautifully brand new. They got like over 12 tennis courts, saunas, you name it. It's amazing. I didn't even know the name of it until everything came out. I was also like you. I'm like, Hotel X is just, they're not naming it, right? And then I drove by it. It's a big sign. It says Hotel X on it. And I was like, never had a clue about this hotel, and it's pretty new. So yeah.
Awesome. Hey, thank you for the explanation, because I just thought that they were trying to deter fans from like hanging out and so on. So
yeah,
I appreciate that.
It's all good. So getting back to, you even mentioned Tuukka. He looked even fine during the round robin games, and of course, being nominated for the Vezina this past year, he looks great. Probably the best goaltender in the last decade. They're gonna probably need to lean on him maybe even more in these playoffs.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Tuukka's a mainstay in Boston, regardless of what a lot of the Bruins fans think of him. Not very well liked around here because he chokes the big game and then this and that. But I don't believe in that. I believe he's a goaltender that this Bruins franchise was smart about building from him and working their way out, just like they did with Tim Thomas in the early years leading up to 2011. They went from the crease out. So I have faith in Tuukka. This is some things that I'm a little concerned about in these play-in round robin games. Lateral movement side to side. His timing was a little off, a little slow. I don't know if that's sluggish or is that was just the team that was just playing. They were all just not on board with 100% competing, in my opinion. So I think Tuuk's going to be a huge factor for this in this series, and I hopefully it starts tonight. They come out and that switch is switched, and we can start getting right into some real hockey where it counts, and these guys know it means something and actually try.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know who you might think of as an X factor on the team, but Andre Kasha could be that person. They added him at the deadline. How's he looking? I know he only played that one game during the round robin.
He's got one game in the round robin. That was on Sunday against Washington Capitals. Mm-hmm. I thought he looked okay. I wasn't overly impressed, but I think that more reps into this first round playoff and more games, more action, I think he's going to get a little better. He only played 6 games with the Bruins after the trade. So I really haven't seen much of him that really just blows my mind that the Bruins really needed to get this guy. But like I said, it's early, and 2020 just really kicked the nuts of everybody in the hockey world, and his progression into learning what type of team the Boston Bruins are and chemistry on the line with Krejci and DeBrusk. So I mean, hopefully this is hopefully he will be a game breaker, comes out shooting. And I mean, he's a fast kid. He does have a lethal shot, but I want to see more of an east-west and not such a north-south game.
For sure. Hurricanes, they had a very good series in that first round. How do they match up against them? I know they're going to probably put on a good fight. It's going to be an entertaining series for sure.
Yeah, I think so too. And just for the fact that you look at the lineup of the Carolina Hurricanes with Sebastian Aho, Taro Teravainen, and Niederreiter. He's a veteran. And there's another one that Svechnikov. Yeah. Yep. I mean, these guys are just absolutely lethal. I mean, it's stick handle in a phone booth, and they can put shots on anywhere in stride. It's going to be tough. And the defense of Slavin and Sammy Vatanen and all those guys on the back end, they're going to be tough to break through. So once you cross that line and you can get past those skilled forwards, you're going to have a defensive wall that's going to be ready for you, and you need to expose them as soon as possible, and as soon as game one, because this is a best of 4 out of 7 series. So the more you hamper on their weaknesses, the better this series could be. But the oldness of Chara and the young crew and so on the Boston Bruins have me a little worried, but hopefully that switch is turned and I'll eat my words. But I do see this Bruins team being a little better, but the forwards on this Hurricanes team, they absolutely they're lethal, and I'm a little worried about what they did to New York and what they could do to Boston.
Yeah, for sure. I have a feeling that the Canes might have to really be up for the game tonight. And hopefully, if the Bruins do lose the first game, they're at least geared up for the next game, because at least they can take it a long series. Again, you can find them on Twitter at blackandgold277. Mark, thanks for coming on the show.
No problem, man. Hey, thanks for those streams over the time off, man. That was really fun to watch.
Yeah, always. Let's get over to the West now and talk some Vegas Golden Knights hockey. Now on the show is Ryan Wallace. He's the radio host for the Golden Knights Insider Show. You can get him on the pre- and post-game on Fox Sports Vegas and the Rink Rats podcast on Las Vegas Sports Network. You can find him on Twitter at Ryan Hockey Guy. Hey, Ryan, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, so Vegas was really incredible during the round robin, going 3-0. They've had a big comeback against Dallas down 3-1, winning 5-3. Back and forth games between the Blues and the Avs, winning them both. Of course, versus the Avs, big OT win there. They've looked great. I really liked Nate Schmidt and Theodore's game. Vegas, they were looking pretty good before that, but they're really clicking right now, eh?
Yeah, I mean, the Golden Knights had one mission and one mission only in round robin. That was to win the whole thing. I mean, this is a team that expects to win the Stanley Cup this year, and everything that you're hearing and seeing out of them is a team that is checking off all the boxes to do so. Shea Theodore is poised to completely break out here in the playoffs. I think he's one of the most, if not the most important players for the Golden Knights throughout this playoff run. Nate Schmidt is obviously the beneficiary of Pete DeBoer wanting more out of his defenseman in terms of activation and really getting into the play. So those two guys on the back end, and another one, maybe an X factor on the back end, Zach Whitecloud. He's been fantastic for the Golden Knights. Those guys jumping in, extending plays, possessing the puck, and then their creativity on the rush is really what sets Vegas apart.
What is something that you would think Vegas kind of needs to work on a little bit more?
Yeah, it's tough, right?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if you're looking at the round robin as a whole, I would say it's probably limiting mistakes in their game. It's all detail oriented. When they got into trouble against Dallas, it was self-inflicted. It was turnovers, just poor decisions in the defensive zone. Kind of the same thing with St. Louis. That game was a lot closer on the scoreboard than it really was when you're looking at the game, kind of getting into the underlying metrics. But again, it was the Golden Knights kind of making mistakes, allowing the Blues to hang around. So for me, it's really going to be about puck management. As long as the Golden Knights are managing the puck and playing their game, they're just fine.
And they had an interesting coaching change in the middle of the season. How's been DeBoer and the new coach so far?
Yeah, I mean, they've had a lot of success under Peter DeBoer. You know, you look at the way that the Golden Knights play, they're a lot more structured. I would think they're making the plays that are there for them. And, you know, I think the benefit of having Pete DeBoer for an entire training camp here on this reset really allowed the Golden Knights to hammer in what he wants and expects out of them. So it's a team that has all the pieces. They've got depth. They've got elite scoring up front. And then you've got a lot of talent on the back end. And, you know, you can't go wrong when you've got 2 number 1 goalies. So for the Golden Knights, I think they're a pretty complete team, and Pete DeBoer knows what to do with complete teams.
I'm guessing they're going to go with Robin Leonard between the pipes since they started in the last game. And he hasn't lost yet in the golden jersey, right?
Yeah, he's not lost a game as a Golden Knight. That is correct. He is 5-0 as a Vegas Golden Knight. I wouldn't be 100% sure that Robin Lehner is going to get the start. They've alternated goalies ever since they traded for Robin Lehner at the deadline. If you follow that logic, then Marc-Andre Fleury may get game one against Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the organization or the team really has any problem with either guy getting the start over the other. I think that they believe in both guys to get the job done, and that's kind of where the Golden Knights are at in terms of goaltending.
It's pretty interesting. I don't think Chicago thought that they'd be here in this point, and then Robin Lehner might be on the other side of the ice. All right. What's the update now on sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Chicago expected to be in the playoffs at all, but if we're being honest, they certainly didn't expect to see Robin Lehner.
Yeah, that's for sure. What is the update on Patches?
Yeah, Patch Reddy is in the bubble. He served his quarantine, so he practiced today with the team. It appears that he is good to go for game one, which is a scary, scary prospect, I think, for the Chicago Blackhawks, because you look at the Golden Knights and what they were able to do offensively in round robin against Dallas, against St. Louis, against Chicago, good teams that play pretty strong defensive games. And they did that all without Max Pacioretty, so getting him back makes them even deeper, even scarier up front.
For sure. Who do you think is a bit of an X factor for the Golden Knights?
Yeah, I'll give you two, one on offense, one on defense. Offensively, I think it's going to be Nick Waugh. Nick Waugh is the center right now for the third line of the Golden Knights with Max Pacioretty coming back. That third line is likely going to be Chandler Stevenson, Nick Waugh, and Alex Tuck. Nick Waugh will be the pivot. He'll be the center, and I think that he's one of those guys that can take big face-offs. He can kill penalties, and he's got a real knack for finding offense right around the net. So, and for me, offensively, it's going to come down to depth, and what the Golden Knights have in spades is depth, especially on that third line with Nick Waugh. And then on the back end, I mentioned him earlier, it's Zach Whitecloud. He's one of those players that, he's come in, he's never out of position. He's always making the right reads, jumping in on the play when it makes the most sense. He's a very complete defenseman. Not so much just a traditional stay-at-home guy. He's got some offensive instincts. He just scored his first NHL goal in the playoffs in the round robin. I think there's a lot left to go for Zach Whitecloud, a lot to come for the Golden Knights.
I have the Golden Knights going 4-1 against the Hawks. Can the Hawks muster anything more than maybe a game?
Yeah, I think that, you look at the Chicago Blackhawks, you look at Kane, you look at Taves, you look at much more mobile so far in the qualifying round. I mean, granted, they were playing the Oilers and their leaky defense, but beyond that, I liked a lot of what I saw out of Duncan Keith. The Blackhawks are more than just those three guys. They've got Dominic Kubalik, 30 goals as a rookie. That's a lot of offensive firepower. And Kirby Dach is one of those players that I think took advantage of this pause and came back a more complete NHL player. And that's really what it's all about. So have the kids for the Chicago kind of bridge that? I don't know. I think they'll make it an entertaining series. I think they'll try really hard, and I think that they might win a couple of games, but I just don't see Chicago taking 4 of 7 from the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah. How far do you think the Golden Knights can go? I know for myself, I actually have the Golden Knights going all the way, and it pisses me off a little bit that in my fantasy pool, for some reason, all the other groups that we were doing, nobody didn't pick Vegas until later. And then my group, 2 or 3 of the guys picked them in the first 2-3 rounds. And I was like, I can't believe I didn't get Pacioretty or Stone or anybody else. So I couldn't pick them until later. But I have them going all the way, actually.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team that expects to win the Stanley Cup. They've got all the pieces. I wouldn't be shocked if they're right there. I've got Vegas versus Carolina in my Stanley Cup final. And yeah, I mean, I think that you look at this team, you look at the first 3 years of their existence, they go to the Stanley Cup final as a first-year team in the league and lose to a bigger Cinderella, I suppose, in the Washington Capitals. And then, last year, we don't have to get into that debacle, but clearly look like they're on their way to advance to the second round with a very deep team. Mark Stone's first year in Vegas doesn't work out. And, this year they came out. It was a bit of a struggle all year long, and then they start playing their best hockey right when the pause comes along. So, for me, I think it's an organization that feels like not that anyone's taken anything from them, but they've certainly had some heartbreak over the first 3 seasons. And this is an opportunity to right that. And from an organizational standpoint, they expect to be one of the final teams remaining, if not the champion at the end.
Again, you can find him on Twitter at Ryan Hockey Guy. Thank you for coming on the show, Ryan.
Yep, thanks for having me.
Let's go to the mountains. Now we have on the show is Ian St. Clair. He's the lead writer at playcolorado.com. You can reach that Twitter account at Colorado_play. And you can find Ian on Twitter at Ian St. Clair. Welcome to the show, Ian.
It's great to be on with you, Peter. Thanks for the invite.
Cool. So for the opening round robin series that they had, they went 2-1, 2-1 versus the Blues, blanking them pretty early. I think it was 4-1. I just love the shot of a Bishop lying there after allowing way too many goals for him to handle right now.
Yeah, and then you see that the adverse of that on Pavel Francouz.
Yeah.
Diving and making the save and keeping the puck out of the net.
Oh man, it was ridiculous. The crazy wild game between the Golden Knights in overtime, and I thought even though they outplayed them fairly well in that one. So yeah, going 2-1 in the round robin, I think they looked very good. If you had to nitpick something for the Avs needing to go in the long run, what is it?
I think it's just being sharper. And not having those moments like they had in the first period where they kind of came out a little bit flat, which is it tends to happen with this team, where when they get rolling, you see what they can do against teams like Dallas. And that second game of the round robin seeding, you could see the potential for this team. If they can make that consistent through 60 minutes, and I get that it's really hard, but if they can make that more consistent instead of having these lulls like they had in that first period against Vegas, that's what is going to lead this team to a deep playoff run, I think.
I don't know if many people across the league really know about the amazing, solid defensive stalwart that is Ryan Graves.
He is, and it came out of nowhere because prior to this season, even the hardcore Avalanche fans may have known the name Ryan Graves, but they had no idea that he was going to lead the league in plus minus at plus 40. And the way that he's able to just consistently be that defensive presence for this team. And he had a couple of breakdowns against Las Vegas in that game, in that third game of the round robin, which is bound to happen, especially against a team like Vegas, which is so deep and so good offensively. But I think that's what is so surprising about this team is defensively. I mean, because everyone talks about what they can do offensively and the depth that Joe Sakic was able to add. But defensively, I think that's one of the most underrated issues of this team, because very rarely do you see a team get a fast break opportunity or an odd man rush against them because of how great they skate, but how well they're positioned defensively on top of that.
For sure. I like that you mentioned Joe Sakic and the depth, because everybody was like, oh, this is a one-line team. And then they go out previously to go and add a whole great second line with Donskoy, Kadri, Burakovsky. So they've got great depth and great depth on that scoring now.
And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why this team has taken the step forward like it had, because you mentioned they were a one-line team. And the fact that they were able to get past Calgary in that first round last year and really test the San Jose Sharks in that second round to take it to a game 7 without having that second center like Nazem Kadri. And now they have it. And I think the other thing that Kadri brings to this team is that grit and the ability to get under players' skins on the opposing team. I think that's one thing that has been missing for this team to make a deep playoff run, and they have it now. And you mentioned Burakovsky, you mentioned Donskoy. They also traded for Nemestikov at the trade deadline. That's another guy who can, with this depth, he's able to really take the pressure and the stress off and not feel like he has to contribute to stay on the ice. And you add in Belmar, who adds that defensive presence for the fourth line center and can win key faceoffs in his own zone late in the game. This team, the potential is really there now with all these additions to make a deep run and really test the Vegas Golden Knights. I'd love to see that series for a Western Conference final. And then whoever makes it in the East, I think the Avs have a legitimate shot to win their third Stanley Cup if they can put it all together.
Yeah, totally. I had both the Golden Knights and Colorado going all that way as well. So I'm expecting kind of the same result. So we'll see what happens. For McKinnon, who could win the Hart and everything, is there even possibly another gear for him? Especially for them going into maybe possibly a long stretch run here. We might find it. We might see it.
I absolutely think it's possible. I think he's seen what Sidney Crosby has done in Pittsburgh, and the competitor that Nathan McKinnon is, he wants to match his buddy. He wants to top him. And I have no doubt that Nathan McKinnon can take it up another level. He can take it up another notch. And especially when you hear constantly the talk about Connor McDavid being one of those guys who he's even better with his skating with the puck than he is without it. And Nathan McKinnon is very similar to Connor McDavid like that. And now the fact that Connor McDavid is out of the playoffs, McKinnon has the ability to really show what he's capable of now, especially with Sidney Crosby out in the Eastern Conference too. So I totally agree with you. I think he can absolutely take it to another level throughout the course of this playoff run.
Oh man, it just reminded me of a couple years ago. I got to watch the World Cup of Hockey and Team North America, the young kids play, and wow, that was exciting. McKinnon is so exciting to watch. The Cole Harbour boys for sure are outstanding. All right, let's go into that next round series. How do you think it's going to look against the Coyotes? Coyotes are very bit of a question mark, and I think a lot of people are a little surprised even that they got past the Preds, but they've got past them fairly handedly, it seemed like.
Yeah, they really did. I think they've really taken on the identity of Rick Tocchet for the way they play. They're very gritty. They're solid in their own zone. They don't make a lot of mistakes, and they don't give up a lot of opportunities to opposing teams. So I think the Avalanche are really going to have to fight for this one. I think, and I tweeted this out after the game, I don't think it's a bad thing that the Avs are going to avoid the Blackhawks in the first round, because the way Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane flashed that championship mentality in that series against the Edmonton Oilers made me definitely not disappointed that they're not playing Chicago. But Arizona is I'm by no means saying that it's not going to be tough, that it's going to be easy, because I think the Coyotes are a very tough team to play against, and they offer some very tough matchups for this team. I do think that the Avs are favored, as they are in multiple sports books now that sports betting is live now in Colorado. Mm-hmm. They're the favorite. I think that's the case, because I think they're just too good and too much depth and too good defensively. So I do think that the Avs are going to win this series, but it's going to be a grind. It's going to be a very tough series for the Avalanche to get through and make their way to the second round.
You can find him on Twitter at Ian St. Clair. Thanks for coming on the show, Ian.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much.
Now we go to the Big D. Let's talk to Bruce Levine. He's the co-host for the Dallas Stars radio broadcast. You can find him on Twitter at Bruce Levine Puck. Bruce, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me on, Peter. I appreciate this greatly. It's always a pleasure to talk to people from the Great White North.
Thanks. All right, so the first quick update I did want to talk to you about, and we talked a little bit about it before we started recording. What is the update with both Seguin and Bishop? Both of them, of course, if you include the exhibition, they've missed a couple of games.
Yeah, it's very concerning that they didn't play more than 2 games during the round robin. Tyler Seguin, we don't know, was sort of a surprise that he was basically at the last minute pulled from the Vegas game, which was the Stars' first game in the round robin, and then he didn't play against St. Louis, the last game of the round robin. The bigger surprise is Ben Bishop has been doing a lot of maintenance days, as they like to call it. We had going back to training camp here in Frisco, Texas, they had a scrimmage. The defense sort of let Bishop out to dry. He gave up 5 or 6 goals. Next day, maintenance day. Practice for a couple of days, maintenance day. Goes up to Edmonton, plays half the game against Nashville, plays against Vegas, maintenance day. Not dressing out for Colorado, maintenance day. Not dressing out for St. Louis. But today, Rick Bowness said in the press conference that both Bishop, Seguin, and the entire team are healthy. Everyone practiced, so everyone is technically ready to go. I would think Seguin for sure will play against Calgary in game 1. Ben Bishop, I'm not so sure, especially when you consider that Anton Khudobin has been lights out this year, and the team has a ton of confidence in him. If Bishop's not 100%, don't be surprised to see Khudobin, and especially since the first 4 games of this series are going to be played in 6 days, we're going to see quite a bit of Anton. Certainly last year, Ben Bishop played every playoff game. Khudobin's going to get his crack this year.
All right, we'll see. During the round-robin games, they lost to Vegas 5-3. They gotten beaten pretty poorly against that Avalanche, who look really good so far. And they outplayed the Blues and needed the shootout to beat them 2-1. Gurianov with that shootout winner. They're going to need a lot more from Seguin and even Ben and Radulov, which I didn't see them muster much during those round-robin games.
And you didn't see them muster much during the regular season either. This is a Dallas Stars team that, quite frankly, 3 is the magic number for the Dallas Stars. If the Dallas Stars can get to 3 in any way, shape, or form, they win more than 80% of the time. You got to remember, this is a team that finished the regular season with the second best goals against in the NHL. So their goals against was just slightly 2.5. So they need just basically 3 goals. If you get a goal from Seguin, Ben, Radulov, Pavelski, any one of those guys, then you get a power play goal and someone else chips in. That's a winning formula for the Dallas Stars. But you look at the numbers. Tyler Seguin led the team with 50 points, which is way below his normal pace. Jamie Benn had 39. Radulov only had 15 goals in 60 games. The Stars' leading goal scorer was Denis Gurianov, and you've got to remember, he began the season poorly, got sent down to the AHL, then came up and really was lights out. But if you're a Dallas Stars team that wants to go far in the playoffs, I mean, your best players have to be the best players on the ice. And you're right, Seguin, Ben, Radulov have to contribute. And here's the weird thing, Peter. You look at Tyler Seguin. They've been trying to get him going ever since the restart happened. If he does play against Calgary on a line with Ben and Radulov like he has in the past, it will be the 4th different line combination we have seen Tyler Seguin try to be fit into since the restart. He's played on lines with Ben and Gurianov, Ben and Hintz, Gurianov, Hintz, and Seguin, but they have not found the winning combination for Tyler yet, and they have got to get Tyler unleashed, as he is still the premier goal scorer and offensive threat on this team.
When do we expect the management to throw them under the bus again then?
We don't. That ain't happening again. That is not going to happen again, and certainly with not that kind of language. Dallas has a new president, Brad Albert, who is not going to use that language in public. The Dallas Star, this has been, for the NHL, this has been the weirdest season ever, obviously. The Dallas Stars already had their weirdest season ever before coronavirus hit. This has just been anything that you could imagine going crazy, going wrong, being haywire with a team has happened this year. So management is not going to carve into them. But here's the strange thing. It doesn't seem on the calendar that long ago, but it seems a lifetime ago that this team hosted the Winter Classic in front of the second biggest crowd to watch a hockey game in North America. That seems like a lifetime ago. It has just been absolutely phenomenally nuts this year.
It's been crazy. Klingberg looked really good in that last round-robin game. How is he looking overall?
Klingberg missed a game against Colorado. He was hurt. Thomas Harley came in. The Stars need John Klingberg. And John Klingberg takes a lot of abuse from fans down here on the social media for whatever. But then again, Alex Goligoski took a lot of abuse from fans down here for whatsoever. But both these guys have played for numerous coaches who give them upwards of between 25 and 30 minutes a night. So obviously they're pretty good. But what John Klingberg brings to this team, and especially on the power play, is John Klingberg has the ability to quarterback the power play, and he is one of the best in the league. I'll go with Zach Werenski from Columbus also, of getting the puck through the maze of players to the front of the net. John Klingberg does not have a Shea Weber cannon from the blue line. What he has is the innate ability to fire a wrist shot through a mass of bodies and get it on net. And if the Stars, we talk about getting to 3, a power play goal is a big part of that equation to get to 3. They need John Klingberg out there on the blue line doing those kind of things on the power play. Klingberg is paired with Esa Lindell. It's the Stars' 1-2 defensive pairing. Klingberg is vital to this team. And if John Klingberg plays at a high level, he struggled at points in time during the regular season. But John Klingberg last year in the first round series against Nashville was fantastic. And if that John Klingberg shows up against Calgary, it's a good sign for Dallas.
Talking about Calgary, how do they match up against the Flames?
Surprisingly, Dallas had some very bad moments against Calgary this year. Mm-hmm. Dallas was, from the Dallas Stars point of view, they were 1-1-1 against the Calgary Flames. They lost both games at home. And what makes the 2 games they lost at home very hard to swallow is the first game they lost, they were up 2-0 in the third period, and they had just an awful 90 seconds, gave up a breakaway and gave up a 2-on-1 and wound up losing in a shootout. For a Dallas Stars team that does not score a lot of goals, if you're up by 2 goals in the third period, that's got to be game over. And that loss stung badly. Then right before the Christmas break, Calgary comes in here and destroys Dallas by a count of 5-1. 3 of the goals were power play goals. The other goal was a shorthanded goal. Mm-hmm. And you look at that and go, when your special teams gets beaten 4-0 at home ice the day before everyone goes on Christmas break, you've had a bad outing. So for the Dallas Stars, they realize that Calgary is an opportunistic team. They realize that Calgary, if they get on the power play, has ways of making you pay because you've gone shorthanded. So for the Dallas Stars, I'm sure there's been a lot of game tape being passed around as to how to stop that Calgary power play. That not only did they score 3 goals in that one game, but overall against Dallas this year in the 3 games played, they have 5 power play goals and a shorty. That's 6 special teams goals in 3 games. Dallas has got to find a way to stop that.
For sure. If that top line is together and they start clicking, but then you have that depth of Rupe, Hintz, Faksa, even, of course, Corey Perry and Pavelski, this team could be really scary underdog compared to some of these other teams. Could they go pretty far then?
They could go pretty far if they play the way they played against St. Louis, or they could go home quickly if they played the way they played against Colorado. Now, I put more stock in the way they played against St. Louis because the Colorado game, Klingberg was out, Bishop was out, Sagan had just gotten back in the lineup. But this is a Dallas Stars team that is built to win now. They signed Pavelski in the offseason and Corey Perry and even Andrei Sekera in the offseason because they wanted a veteran presence of people who knew how to get the job done in clutch situations. This team is not built for the future. This is not going to be a learning experience for the Dallas Stars. They are here to win, and they are here to win more than just one round. Anything less, if Dallas is not playing in the next round, this will be a very disappointing season. And if they don't get there because they don't score goals, there's going to be a lot of soul searching on this team as to how they get to that next level, because defensively, they are solid. As a team, their structure is solid. If they can't get to 3, it's going to be an issue.
You can find him on Twitter at Bruce Levine Puck. Thank you for coming on the show, Bruce.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Let's go to the big arc in the Midwest and talk to Laura Astorian. She's the site manager at St. Louis Game Time. The website is stlouisgametime.com. You can find her on Twitter at HildyMac. Laura, welcome back to the show. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's good to see you again.
So the Blues didn't look so great during the round robin, going 0-2-1, losing close ones 2-1 to the Avs and the Stars. Of course, to the Stars it was in OT, and a wild one against Vegas. They had the lead there, and the Knights came storming back in the third with 3. What is vital that the Blues really need to work on?
Being interested in the games that they're playing in, I think, is number one. That game against Dallas on Sunday may have been one of the dullest hockey games I've ever seen played between two teams. Like, fans from Dallas and from St. Louis watching it, I was scrolling through Twitter while I was watching it, and fans of both teams were like, "Oh my God, just end this game." Mm-hmm. It just didn't seem like they were. I don't know if it was because they were basically like exhibition games almost, or or they were just playing light not to get hurt, or what the deal was, but they seemed really disinterested. So hopefully now that they're actually in the real Stanley Cup playoffs against a pretty good team, hopefully they'll wake up and play with a little bit more effort on all their parts.
For sure. And even Tarasenko missed, I guess, the Vegas game. And when he was playing, I guess he didn't look so great. How is he looking right now?
I mean, he looks so. He had a couple really good chances against Dallas, which was nice to see because I almost fell asleep during that game, and he woke me up at one point. I was like, "Oh my god, that was a shot on goal." He's looking better. I mean, it's been so long since he's been playing with like in an actual game that, I mean, there's going to be a little bit of rust with him. The top six as a whole hasn't necessarily looked fantastic, but I mean, I'm going to cut him some slack just because he's been gone since October. So I don't expect him to be, going at full strength during the exhibition and during the round robin games.
Yeah, for sure. Pietrangelo, the captain, is an interesting player now, especially with the salary cap being halted for the next few years, and they might not have cap space for him. Is he going to be playing even harder now? Maybe even playing for a new contract?
I would assume so. Yeah. I mean, he's never been the kind of player that's ever really taken a day off. There's been a couple points where, like, last season he didn't have the best season, but he also just had triplets. So I think that's probably a pretty good excuse. But this season he's been fantastic all year long. And I think that during the playoffs, I think he, not just being the captain, but also, like you said, playing for a new contract, wherever that may be, hopefully St. Louis. I think that should probably, I think you'll probably be able to tell a little bit in this play.
It doesn't really matter too much how they played during the round robin, but I believe Binnington wasn't great against Vegas. Otherwise, he's an amazing goaltender. He had another solid year. It rests on him. If he can win games for them, they can go really far.
Absolutely, yeah. And the Vegas game, I really very much got the feeling from both teams that one was defense optional. I mean, he got hung out to dry a little bit in that one too, but he's that kind of goalie that, he can steal a game, and he demonstrated that all throughout the playoffs last year. It's just that the Blues just need to remember that they have to put defense on the ice in front of him. And also, Jake Allen. Jake had a great game against Dallas. He had a really good bounce back season this year too. So even if Binnington maybe has an issue in a game and they want to go, with Allen, I'm not as uncertain in that idea as I probably would have been last year.
For sure. If you would pinpoint an X factor on this team, could it maybe be Robert Thomas or maybe someone else?
Well, definitely when Robert Thomas is up there. I think that he does tend to fly under the radar, I think, on kind of a national kind of level, but he was excellent in the game against Dallas. And he hasn't disappointed this season at all. So yeah, no, I definitely think Thomas is up there. Overall, I think that the top six as a whole could be an X factor if they don't start producing. Other than just David Perron, like, he can't win every game for us. I mean, God bless him, he tries, but we need more scoring from the top guys to complement the scoring from the third line.
For sure. I love David Perron. I always liked him, even during the first run with the Blues. Hard worker. He's great.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Hopefully they'll protect him this time at the expansion draft.
We'll
I mean, he'll come back anyway, but
Yeah, for sure. He'll come back for thirds and fourths.
Why not?
For sure. So their first round matchup is against the Canucks. How do you see the series going?
Well, during the regular season, the Blues and the Canucks, I mean, that was a pretty tough season back and forth. I mean, they're overall, even though there's a big gap between them, points wise. I mean, if you look at the breakdowns statistically by like power play percentage, penalty kill percentage, stuff like that, they're actually pretty close. I think that it's going to be a challenge. I think that Vancouver, they fought for a while to get back in the postseason, and they belong back in the postseason. I think that, the Blues definitely cannot, let up against them. They can't look at them as, oh, well, they're just the 7th seed, or, they're whatever, we're the Stanley Cup champions, because the Canucks are going to be gunning for them because they're the Stanley Cup champions. So the Blues just need to take care of their own business and not underestimate Vancouver, because it's probably going to be a challenge for Vancouver. I mean, the Blues aren't the Wild, but Vancouver can still get their licks in on us.
That's for sure. All right, you can find her on Twitter at HildyMac. Laura, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I hope you all enjoyed this long episode, everyone. I put a lot of heart into it. I want to thank all of our guests today. It's great to talk to everyone in hockey and get a better view of each and every single team. As well, a special thank you to Jordan Henry. Congrats on a great career. It was fun having you on, and I hope you enjoy spending more time with your kids. Next week, we'll focus more on the first round series, and we'll talk more about the big storylines within them and have some of our guests back on the show. Check that out every Wednesday. Go to our website, jablamsports.com, to see all our podcasts and even game notes for every episode. You'll get tidbits and links to all the things we mentioned on this show. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And click on the 3 dots in your podcasting app and share this show with 3 friends you know. If you want to contact us or have any questions on the show, you can follow me on Twitter at Russian98 or the entire team at Jablam Sports. You can also use the hashtag Jablam Sports, that's JABLAM Sports. If you want, you can also contact us on our website, jablamsports.com/contact. If you also like wrestling, go check out our new wrestling podcast, Pro Wrestling Explode, presented by our team at Jablam Sports. It's where Pepperoni, Miranda, and I get into AEW and WWE wrestling, and we recap and analyze recent matches, storylines, pay-per-views, and what's in wrestling news. Thank you, everyone. Shout out this week. It's to all the first responders, doctors out there who have really stepped it up during this pandemic. I want to thank you all for your hard work and help that you do each and every single day. Thank you. And to each one of our listeners, I'm giving you a virtual hug. Stay healthy, listen, be yourself, and stay strong.